Welcome to Conversations for Our Time, podcast number 14 with the Quiet Sun team, George and John. Today we're going to continue and pick up from where we left off from last time, here on this mini-series of regenerative permaculture practices. You know, really bringing back methods that work alignment with nature, respecting her, understanding the lessons that she gives, which really helps bring back the connection to her, and using these practices where everyone wins, the environment, eating clean food, receiving all the nutrients, and taking back our health and power, which is what it's really about. And it can take up a lot of our own time growing food ourselves because we have to work, etc. But if we do that, then, the brutal truth is, until we do that, the brutal truth is society will get sicker and sicker. However, on a positive note, more people are growing their own food, clean food, and the health is improving, and relying less and less on the big corporations. So this will be part 4 of the mini-series, and I'm just going to say hello to John. John, how you doing?
Hey, George. Yeah, I'm good. How about yourself?
Yeah, all good. Yeah, few changes in my life since we've done the last podcast, but I'm moving forward, and that's the main thing. And we'll always have time for these podcasts.
Yeah, that's it, George. And they're always inspiring, and they help us evolve, right? I mean, through dialogue and conversation, we can really come up with new ideas, be inspired, become more creative, and empower each other as well.
Yeah, this is exactly what these podcasts are about, and we hope that they're helping other people. And we're really trying to bring in the cutting edge information of permaculture, regenerative permaculture practices from the top researchers around the world. And this is where we're at the moment. So, picking up from the last podcast, we were talking about the pH test, the light tests, but the next part was actually doing a soil jar test by Olivier Hasson. He does a good one, depending on how far and deep you want to go into getting the best out of your soil, and to find, what the soil is lacking, or what it has and what it shouldn't have. We can even do a lab test, as we touched upon that in the last podcast, and it's good fun, John, as well. People can look at these things as like mini projects, getting to know your soil and having a relationship and connection with that soil, and trying to improve it and giving the best life possible using the permaculture practices and techniques that we've been talking about.
Yeah, exactly, George. We have to, if we want to grow good food, and have a healthy gut biome, then soil is the key. And testing your soil is a great way of understanding how you can remediate it. So I think it's really, it's like the foundations of a building. They're the thing that keep the building strong, right? It's the same with the soil, and soil is an amazing creation of the universe. I mean, it comes from rocks, which are decomposed slowly over ecological time by things like organisms like lichens, and they break. The fungal component of a lichen will use acids to break the rock down. I mean, it's just amazing, and that over time that creates soil. But the greatest thing is, this happens over millions of years, but the greatest thing is that we can make soil, ourselves. So the soil jar test, really easy test. Do you want me to explain it?
Just go briefly because there's not
Yeah,
much
yeah,
to it. I mean, I did it,
yeah,
and it's also good to do a few
yeah,
soil jar tests
yeah,
to get
definitely.
an average of what we're looking at with the structure of the soil. So go through it a little bit because I think it's very, very important. It's really getting involved with the soil. This is one
Yeah,
of the first things to do.
definitely. So you find a nice bit of soil where you want to grow your food. As George said, take a couple of samples. So dig down a couple of inches, get the soil um, with a trowel or however you want to do it, and fill up a jar, a clear jar, no label on it. And halfway you want to fill it up. Do that in a couple of different areas wherever you're going to be growing your food. And then you need to fill it up with water, so twice the amount of water that there is soil. Leave a little bit of air in the top and shake the jar for 30 seconds to a minute. I always do it for a minute. And then put it on a level surface and leave it to flatten or leave it to settle, sorry. And what you'll find is the sand particles will settle first, then the silt particles, then the clay particles, and then the organic matter. And so soils are made up of clay, sand, and silt. You're going to get a mix of all those three. Yeah. And you will also get organic matter on the top of the clay, and on top of that will be the water. So
Yes.
once you've done that, you leave it to settle for 24, 48 hours. It sometimes doesn't take that long, but it's best to leave it for that time. And then get some measuring device out. I use a ruler because it's a lot easier to use because it's a straight edge. And you
Yes.
measure
Yes.
from the bottom of the jar, not the bottom of the jar, but where the sand starts inside. And you measure the whole thing. And then you measure each of those different levels. So the sand, the silt, and the clay. It should be pretty obvious. The sand will have the biggest particles, then the silt will have the less large particles, and then the clay will have the smaller particles. So measure the whole thing, measure each one, and then you just need to do a bit of maths to work out the percentage of each of those layers, and then measure the organic matter in that as well. You measure the organic matter separately to the clay, silt, and sand. You can then use a really, really good, it's like a triangle, and that basically gives you the percentage of all the sand, the silt, and the sand, and it will basically tell you what your soil type is. So it can be
Yes.
sandy loam, clayey silt, clayey sand, pure clay, silty loam. There's loads of different variations. There's probably about 20 different variations.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know
Right.
that,
Yeah.
and you know your organic matter, you know where you're going to start because different aggregates, i.e., clay, silt, and sand, all create a different environment in the soil. Clay is very sticky, clay is very dense, so it holds on to water better than sand does. Sand, water just runs straight through it. And the reason you need to know this is because then you can know what you need to do to your soil to make it the perfect environment for your plants. I hope that was good enough.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it gives people an idea what to do because it's not a very difficult thing to do, but it is very, very, very a very important thing to do
Hmm.
to find that out about the soil and just to make sure that when people are doing this test is to use rainwater. It's best to use rainwater.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely rainwater or filtered water.
yes,
And
and yeah,
also, George, sorry, can I just jump in?
go ahead. Yeah, yeah,
Um, that also includes pH testing. So
yes,
when you're testing using litmus paper or you're using the solution that you shake up,
yeah,
use tap water is going to affect the reading of pH. It also affects the nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus readings. I just wanted to add that in so people are aware.
No, that's very good to point out, because I can assure you people are doing exactly that.
Mm.
So they need not to do it. And yes, filtered water and rainwater is the best. And people can just watch a video as well, and just go on YouTube. I'm sure people can do that, but it's very important to do that. And then now we're going to get involved in the major factors involved with healthy soil. I mean, at the end of the day, we want rich, fertile soil with beautiful humus, and just get into a little bit of the etymology of the word humus. There's, lots of words beginning with hum, okay? Just bringing that etymology into it. The root word of hum is ground. So hum us really means ground us. That is the connection between us and the soil. It's always in the words if we look into it, and that is nature, and the universe is playing with, it's kind of playing with us there, and wants us to recognize these things, wanting us to connect on all levels, because it's all there to be discovered,
Yeah.
all there for us to be discovered. Even the word discover, discover. Dis is to take away, so we need to take away the cover.
Mm.
And the word cover, you break that down, see over the truth. And the truth is to really find our connection to everything, because everything is connected to everything, and we're connected to the soil. That dark color you get in the soil is that carbon rich end product of rotted organic matter, making sure it's organic as well. And
Mm.
that's what we want, John.
We do, yeah, George. And having all the humic compounds in there as well. And, this is really important. And humic compounds are created through biology, microbiology,
Yeah.
so the fungi, the bacteria, and all the other microorganisms that exist, the amoebas and the flagella and etc. etc. So the reason it works so well is because there's so much biodiversity, and this is the key to everything. Biodiversity means strength. It means richness. It's got so many connotations. And yes, putting carbon into the soil is really, really important. And there are many ways we can do this, but the best way really is to grow plants. Plants put carbon into the soil and they build soil, because that's how nature does it. So this humus is this rich layer of soil organic matter, which is created by the living and the dead organisms, the microorganisms and the plants that are in this constant cycle of life, generation, decay, death. And this is the beauty of it, is it's never ending, So it's, to get good fertile soil, you need the biology, you need the chemistry to be released by the biology, you need the plants to be exchanging their sugars with the biology for the nutrients they need. So the nutrients, the plants, the biology, the photosynthesis, the air and the water, they're all constantly in these cycles interacting with each other. And this is the easiest way to understand it, I think, in my mind, is if we can create these cycles, we can create amazing soil. And the science is just a part of it, but it's the application, it's the understanding, it's the getting involved. It's like doing the soil jar test. You get your hands in the soil and you learn about it and what it feels like, what it smells like, and the more we get acquainted with the natural cycles and patterns of life, not just in growing food and soil, but in all sorts of different areas, the easier it becomes to understand and the less frustrated we get. Because, this is personal experience, George. My frustration and we were talking about this before we got into the podcast, my lack of patience stops me from seeing certain things that I could be seeing and observing and, reflecting upon. And that would make me better at my craft. So it's not just about the application of growing food, it's about how it changes you as a person and how willing you are to change with that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what cycles are there for as well. Cycles come around so we can reflect, and and gives us time to learn. These repeated patterns will come to us, so we can learn every tiny bit of detail that we can about anything in life. But yes, I totally agree with you there. And then getting even further into the soil, I had to buy my own organic compost this year. And if you can't make your own for whatever reason, there are still good sources out there, like you recommended to me. I just didn't have time or the space to make my own compost like we have done, But if you want to correct the soil yourself, thinking about soil regeneration, bringing balance back to our, ecosystems and letting nature take over. That there are regenerative techniques, remediation methods that we can use, micro remediation, creating biostimulants, biofertilizers. So let's just get into deeper there, John, if you can talk about that.
Yeah, sure. So, there's so much research has been done over the past few decades about how we can remediate and regenerate soil. And the biostimulants or biofertilizers are, there's so many papers out there. You can go onto all these different medical and agricultural sites that have these peer-reviewed papers about the different interactions in the soil and how that works. But really, in the words of John, so there's many different biostimulants or fertilizers. Probably the most well-known is EM, so effective microbes. I think you've heard of this, George.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's effective microbes are they're microbes that have been isolated and tested in a lab to see what they actually do. So take PNSB, which is purple non-sulfur bacteria. So it feeds off light. It remediates heavy metals. It fixes nitrogen. It solubilizes phosphorus. There's probably a lot more, but they're off the top of my head. So that's one component of EM. Lab or lactobacillus, which you can make yourself. You can extract PNSB from the environment as well. But a lactobacillus is a free living microbe that's pretty much everywhere. Okay. And lactobacillus is amazing at suppressing pathogens. So they actually use it in pig farms and chicken coops and all sorts of stuff. And they spray this lactobacillus on the floor and it stops pathogens coming off the manure, kills the pathogens. So they're two components of EM, effective microbes, which you can make yourself. You can actually make effective microbes yourself.
Yeah.
So effective microbes are amazing because these two different microbes, as well as a number of others, work together. You make it in a anaerobic fermented method, and the pH drops down to like 3.5. You then dilute it, and you can either use it as a foliar spray or a soil soak. Now, I'll give you an example of what happened when I used it. Is I used it on my plum tree, because my plum tree, I've got this adult plum tree. It's probably about 25 years old. It was there before I got on my allotment. And the last couple of years, it's been suffering from plum moth, and it's just been looking quite ill. It's been quite difficult to identify what it is. But I knew that EM had all these amazing benefits, so I just decided to spray it on the leaves as a foliar spray. So this was before the fruit set. And whereas the last couple of years I'd received maybe 60 or 70% of my plums had been damaged by plum moth, this year it was only about 20%, probably less than that.
Yeah.
And even a couple of people in my allotment was like, your tree's looking so good this year. You know, and that just comes from spraying EM that I made myself for the cost of like £20.
Yeah.
You know? So the reason I'm mentioning this is because, you know, there's so many different biostimulants and biofertilizers. It's quite amazing, you know? So there's so much out there to discover, and most of these are free living microbes. Another thing you can do is we've done this once before. You can go into the woodland and you can collect indigenous microorganisms, or IMO, from a healthy forest or woodland floor. You can even just take a handful of soil, and you can take it back, and you can put it in your compost. You can lay it on your soil. But what you're doing is you're just basically taking healthy microorganisms from one place, whether you're cultivating these microbes or you're taking it from a forest floor, and you're inoculating it into your soil. Most of our soil is dead. It's been tilled too much. Too much stuff has been sprayed on it. So all the organisms die. Some of them go dormant, you know. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is that, you know, so John Kempf has said that in his research, you can basically identify particular microbes like EM, and there are other microbes out there that are very good at doing particular jobs. Yeah. They might get rid of pathogens. They might improve the immunity of a plant. There's loads of different functions. But if you know what a microbe does, and this is where it gets really clever, is, and I think we spoke about this before, you can bring a microbe into a particular biome, and that microbe has particular genetic expression, right? These microbes are communicating with other microbes all the time. They can actually do a thing called horizontal gene transfer. So if one microbe sees or senses that another microbe has a behavior that it wants to exhibit because it will be in the favor of its evolution and survival, that's where horizontal gene transfer takes place. So they can inhibit these new behaviors or new ways of doing things. So you can actually multiply those microbes that have a really good favorable characteristics into your soil biome. So that's really important. And then if you want to go deeper into it, you can also have like plant growth promoting mycorrhizae or bacteria. And these are things that actually help to increase the plant growth of any particular plant. And there's so many, George. It's, you know, it would take a while to kind of get into it, but So you have things like phosphorus solubilizers, yeah. So that's the PNSB, and you have um, phosphorus mobilizers. So if you have too much phosphorus in your soil, you can use these bacteria to actually mobilize it. So like these microbes are absolutely amazing and how they perform these tasks. But the important thing, I just want to kind of conclude this bit, is there's nothing like building soil organic matter because you need somewhere for all these microbes to go. So having mulch and humus is where all these microbes live. So you can't just use the microbes and expect them just to improve your clay soil. You need to build up the organic matter. And the organic matter, this is the thing I can stress the most, is like you want your organic matter over 10%, preferably 20%. And that's why following nature and allowing nature to do the work by growing plants, chopping them down, letting them compost into the ground is actually a really smart way of doing things if you've got those resources.
Yeah, I think it's truly remarkable, what you're talking about there, and with the microbes is how they're doing these little tiny things that we can't generally see what's going on in the soil and the naked eye. This whole world, this whole universe is going on down down below the soil without people knowing it. And it's so good that people, we have researchers that we all, look into, and they're just discovering these things and letting people know. And it's all there, really easy for people to obtain this information. And it is very, very deep, but people can take what they feel, what resonates with them, and look into certain aspects of what John is talking about in their own time. It's just to give you a bit of a lead and
Yeah.
give people a bit of a lead to where they go. But it is truly remarkable.
Do you know what I like about this, George? Is this is what gives me all these discoveries. Yeah. No, you don't have to get into the science because it's not about that. What it's about is that of all the toxic shit that we pumped into our soils and our
Yeah.
environment, it can all be remediated. Every
Yeah.
last bit of it. Everything, even microplastics, man. There's fungi that eat microplastics. So this is about empowerment and potentiality. The universe is infinite. So are the possibilities, and this is the message. My main message, my intent to pass to people is talk about chemtrails, talk about all this stuff, whatever. It's just noise, right? It's about solutions. It's about finding what can remediate. Of course, it's important to know these dangers, but we need to get past that and focus on what is possible.
I totally agree because as much as we've done the conspiratorial things in the past, it is really now time to learn this stuff. What more can you learn about chemtrails? What more can you learn about the government? There's just no point. This is where it is at, and I truly come to know now that this duality that we live in, are we going to get distracted about this, with the silly stuff that's going on? Are we going to come here to actually learn this stuff, and there's so much to learn, but you don't have to learn it all. It's just to take an interest into it and find out what's going on, because I find this far, far more interesting, than, continuously exposing the controllers of the world. This is not where we want to go into, in general. We want to go into this kind of stuff, and this is what we want to encourage people to do, because there are lessons here, like what you had with your the plum tree that come to you in your life for a reason. It was a lesson there for you to overcome and learn something, and that's truly a gift.
Yeah, it is, man. Definitely. And gifts come to us in so many different ways, don't they? They can sometimes come to us in even trauma, right? Trauma can sometimes be a gift if you allow it to be, because we're all traumatized. And I'm not saying this lightly, I don't mean it's a gift, like trauma is a serious thing, but the event that happens causes the trauma, right? But it's the trauma that we need to address. And why we feel the way we feel about that event differs from person to person, right? And so it's about healing that trauma. So it's the healing, it's the problem becomes the solution, because the healing digs much deeper than the trauma. The traumatic event isn't the real trauma. The trauma is that we don't realize how fucking powerful we are. That's the trauma. That we're all living Buddhas, or whatever you want to describe it as. That's what we are. And we're in these vessels and we're living these lives for the lesson. You know, I suffered a lot when I was, I didn't have any abuse or anything like that. But as a teenager, I suffered mentally so much. But now it's turned into my gift, because I'm more empathetic. I can understand people more, I understand why people do stupid things or horrible things, right? Because I'm separating the event from the person, or the behavior from the person. You know what I mean? And this is the thing, is like all these, whatever you want to call them, the people that are massively out of sync with the natural laws of life, yeah, the trauma, the global trauma they're causing, there's a purpose to it. The purpose is to wake us all up. Because it's not them, it's the universe, right? Do you know what I mean? The universe is causing all of this to happen.
And I would be in a total agreement with you there, because it is the universe doing this to kick us so hard onto the next level of healing and learning. And it's all different levels. If we just stop doing the things that are causing us our own trauma as well, because the mind, the body, the spirit knows how to heal, the subconscious knows how to heal. When it comes to also a trauma, allow yourself to feel the trauma, and and allow your mind, body, and spirit to heal. It knows how to heal. And that's the same thing with nature. It's exactly the same thing with nature. When it comes to nature is always seeking that balance. But what humans decide to do is to interact too much and change things and try and control nature. And this is where the problem lies. Just same thing with the soil. Just leave it and it will remediate itself. Let nature take over. Sometimes we just got to stop doing the things that are causing the problems.
Yeah.
Nature knows how to heal. Nature knows how to balance. We know how to heal, and we've just got to allow the process to take over, but we get in our own way sometimes. And that is the true, one of the harshest truths to actually realize, that we do get in the way. We get in the way of nature. We get in the way of our own healing.
Yeah, and other people's healing as well.
Absolutely.
And so, and this is really important. It's about changing this poison into medicine. That's like a Buddhist kind of terminology, but yeah, it's it's amazing we can create a lot of life from like death, or turning a negative into a positive, and it's like to make compost, right? If you want to make compost, you're basically taking something dead or dying, i.e. the compost material, and creating new life from it. just by changing the environment a little bit, you know. So the reason I said that, because I know that's the next thing we want to talk about.
Well, it is, no, it is perfectly, what you're saying is absolutely correct, Um, and yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if we're going to get time into going into further of the composting types, which was going to be the next subject. But I think all these aspects that we're talking about is very, very important because it keeps us, you know, into reality.
Mm,
We're not getting distracted about with those distractions. You
yeah.
know, now's the time to learn. Now's the time to heal. Now's the time to apply what we learn, whether it's with nature, whether it's with regenerative practices and permaculture, and apply what we learn spiritually into our own lives to heal, because it's all one. It's all one and the same thing. Everything is an allegory in this world, and I think with these podcasts, we're trying to bring about, diversity as well, bringing everything else into it. It all matters: mind, body, spirit, nature, soil, the
Yeah.
environment. It all matters. It all comes down to one thing: is it's just healing, learning, and balancing. So what
Mm.
we'll do is we'll go into more of the composting types, composting ingredients in the next podcasts, and we're going to keep doing this because we feel like we're giving something a fresh to the audience. So unless there's anything else you want to add as
The
well.
macrocosm, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, man. Always good to podcast with you, George.
Yeah, it's absolutely a pleasure. I mean, we're going to keep this as a regular thing, because we're always learning, and we just want to share it with everybody and let them take away whatever resonates with them. If they want to find out more information, you know, always ask us. You can leave comments, or you can contact any one of us. We always leave links to contact us. But is there anything else you'd like to add before we end the podcast, John?
Yeah, no, the only thing I wanted to say really is um, we're now entering a really difficult time, the time of transition. And really, it's about having the courage to follow what your heart desires, because you become more empowered when you're doing what you love to do. This is really important. Um, if you're not doing what you want to do, it's easy to be persuaded or, cop out or whatever. That's what I wanted to say, because that's what I'm doing at the moment, is really trying to not do the things that I don't want to do. I'm tired of playing society's games. I want to create value, but there's a lot of things I've done in my life that I've not enjoyed. And I know that goes for everyone, but we don't deserve that. We deserve to be free. So that's all I wanted to say.
I think it's a great way to end the podcast, and I absolutely agree with you, John. It's about freedom, it's about alignment with ourselves, alignment with nature, and this is what we're all doing. And we both want to say, thank you for everyone to listening, and we really hope that we are helping and giving you knowledge and to continue growing food, and having that connection with nature and with yourselves. So thanks for tuning in, folks. We're going to be doing the next podcast soon. So you take care, and we'll speak to you soon.
Till next time. Thanks.
Pond 5.